G'day guys and welcome to ReDriven. Now, I have always loved Volvos. I actually used to have an 850R because I was obsessed with the chunky wagons that were in the British Touring Car Championship. And back in 2009, when the XC60 was first released, I may have fallen in love with it just a little bit. I love that these are like the cool Scandinavian option to the typical, European Audi, BMW, Mercedes SUV options. But just because I love these, that doesn't necessarily mean they're actually any good. Like, yes, they're very stylish, and being a Volvo, it's probably quite safe, but are they any good? Like, what goes wrong with them? What do they like to live with on a daily basis? What do they cost to own and operate? And most importantly, should you buy one? Let's find out. Now, before we get deep into the XC60, can you please do us a favor and hit those like, subscribe and bell icon buttons, and after the video, go check us out on the socials. Now, like ABBA, IKEA and Spotify, Volvo and the XC60 are Swedish, right? Not exactly. See, when these were in production, Volvo was actually owned by Ford, and Ford also owned Land Rover at the same time. And to save some money, Ford decided to cut some costs. So while Volvo did a lot of the engineering and tuning, the XC60 actually shares the same base platform and lots of its technology with the Land Rover Freelander. Which, depending on how you look at it, might mean that these things have some genuinely great off-roading ability, or might be horrendously unreliable, but we'll get to that later. Also, as another cost-cutting measure, even though these are, they're supposed to be Swedish, they were actually made in China, Belgium, and Malaysia. Now, in this video, we will be focusing on the Australian variant of the first generation 2009 to 2017 Volvo XC60s. But if you're not from Australia, don't freak out, because everything we're going to be going over should relate to XC60s in your local market. The XC60 was available in what feels like dozens of different trim levels with various engine and transmission options, and it received updates and revisions right through its production cycle. And while we'd love to go over every graphic detail of every variant and update through the entire product range, that would just take hours. We don't have time for that. But we have gathered all that information and we've put it in our handy ReDriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before handing over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out at redriven.com or in the link below. Now, if you own an XC60 or you're like an XC60 expert and you've noticed that we've missed something in this video, please let us know in the comment section below. We normally find it's those that own and live with these cars that know the most about them. We only have this for a really short time to review. So if we've missed something, let us know in the comments. So, do these look good? Look, personally, I love the way these things look. I love that Volvo have evolved from this, like, they were known for being these boxy cars back in the day, and now they've turned into this like sophisticated, curvaceous design language. I love this thing. Now, this generation of XC60 received a facelift in 2013. This is a 2015, so it's obviously post-facelift, but even the older ones, they still look great. Like the facelift was only very, very subtle. They all look good. The real standout of the range for looks-wise are the R-Design models, because they sit just a little bit lower. They've got bigger alloys and a bit of a subtle body kit, and they just add a bit more aggression to the range. Now, as far as like issues and faults and things to watch out for, there are a few. First up, the headlights. These things can fade at as little as 60,000 kilometers, and on the pre-facelift models, they can be susceptible to cracking. Also, on the pre-facelift and even some post-facelift models, the front and rear bars and some of the external cladding, they're kind of starting to come loose. They just need new clips underneath, and it's a pretty inexpensive fix, but it's just annoying it happens at all. Now, on early model XC60s, there were reports that the windscreens weren't glued in correctly from the factory, meaning that they can leak water and the footwells can fill up with water, and no one likes that happening. Look, chances are, if you're looking at an early XC60, the windscreen's probably been replaced under warranty or during a service, but just in case, go through that service history and all the receipts and make sure on early ones that the windscreen has been replaced. And finally, there are some reports of this third tail light sort of starting to crack and fall apart. How's the interior? Well, from a design aspect, it's clearly very European, but it has that cool kind of understated Scandinavian design flair to it. I love the frameless mirror up here. That is so incredibly cool. Look, timber. I haven't seen timber in a car since like the 70s or early 80s, but they've done it really nicely. It's kind of quite IKEA in style. All the aluminium finishes everywhere, and the switchgear feels just nice. It's kind of a little bit chilly to touch, but just, yeah, it's so cool. It's just a cool vibe. As far as wear and tear goes, it's okay. Like, the levels of squidge aren't as squidgy as maybe you'd hope in a European car, but it's wearing all right. There is some like paint bubbling up here near the start stop button. Some of the chrome and some of those wooden accents are getting a little bit marked up. Leather on the steering wheel is getting pretty shiny, but the leather on the seats is wearing really, really well. And these seats are so comfortable. Driving position is great. The ergonomics of everything, absolutely spot on. Bloody lovely place to be. Now, depending on year and spec, this timber finish on what Volvo call their waterfall design feature can be like a brushed aluminium or stainless steel look, or even piano black. But it's funny that Volvo call it the waterfall feature, because that brings us to some issues and problems that kind of relate to waterfalls. Now, the waterfall problem we're speaking of is the fact that if the XC60 you're looking at has a sunroof, the water can build up in the channels sort of around here, and it's supposed to go down this A-pillar, it turns a bit of a corner and gets released into the wheel well of the car. But the problem is, now that these are getting a bit old, where the join part is in here, it can get brittle and it can crack, and the water, instead of going into the wheel arch, will actually drain into the inside of the dash, down here, down near the footwell. But the problem is, down there is where the computers and some of the fuses and electronics are. So I don't know if you know this, but computers and water don't generally mix. So rather than just having a problem where your footwells fill up with water and water can kind of slosh around the floor of the car, it also does horrible things to the computer and the electronics, sometimes blowing them up. And that can cost many thousands of dollars to repair. If it has a sunroof, make sure all that has been seen to. Also, the heater fans can squeal. It doesn't on this particular one, but they can squeal. It requires buying a new heater fan, which is a Volvo OEM part, but even worse, it requires a special tool that you also have to buy from Volvo. And even worse than that, it requires a lot of the dash and center console to come apart. So just to change the heater fan will take many, many hours and therefore cost many, many dollars. Next up, these left-hand turn signals and all these buttons, these can start to fault and have some issues. It's more annoying than anything, but again, it requires a genuine Volvo part, and being European, genuine Volvo parts can add up in cost. Finally, and look, this is a bit of a first world problem, the fan speed knob, for me, requires too many turns to get to a certain fan speed. Like, I just kind of want it to be like one turn and the fan goes up, one turn and the fan goes back, but instead you kind of go, it just takes forever. First world problem, but frustrating. Okay, the back seat, I'm 188 centimeters tall. This is in my driving position, and space is pretty good. Like, there's no scrubbing of my knees against the back of the seat, good amount of footroom, heaps of headroom, quite a spacious glass house as well, which is good considering that the shoulder height's quite high, but it still feels quite airy and spacious in here. As far as wear and tear goes, excellent. The leather's wearing really, really nicely. All this area here wearing really well. This car does get a bit of a workout, but you'd never know. Feels great. How's the tech? Well, the tech will vary depending on the year, the spec, and a bunch of different options, all of which are listed on our cheat sheets. But for a quick overview, here's me doing a voiceover. All XC60s get Bluetooth as standard with hands-free and audio streaming functions. And as of 2012, they came with a reversing camera, an automatic power tailgate, satellite navigation, and the 5-inch touchscreen size increased to 7 inches. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are way too new for a car of this generation, and we do know of issues where the entire infotainment system can kind of glitch and freak out a little bit, and things do take a bit of time sometimes, like selections and whatnot can take seconds rather than being instantly. And also the sat-nav, no matter which model you've got, it kind of sucks. It's just easier to use your phone. So is it practical? Yes, extremely practical. There's heaps of space back here. Also, that powered tailgate, that goes up faster than almost any other powered tailgate I've seen. Also, when these seats are flat, it is completely flat back here. There is loads of practicality in the boot. And practicality in the second row, there's actually heaps. This is great. Good sized door bins. You've got air vents up here. You've got a 12-volt little power outlet there. This is super cool. You've got inbuilt booster seats for kids. It's built straight into the seat. Map pockets on both front seats. And the armrest is fantastic. You've got 2 cup holders here and a spot for an IKEA catalogue right there. Small IKEA catalogue, but IKEA catalogue nonetheless. Excellent. And practicality up front is pretty good. You've got massive door bins, but the only problem with the door bins is that a lot of it's recessed kind of back into the door, and to get to it, you've got to dislocate your elbow and your wrist to even get to it. There's 2 cup holders under this beautiful sliding little trapdoor. It's a good size bucket here, pretty good size glove box down there. And you can get all romantic with your belongings and put them under the beautiful waterfall center console under here. What goes wrong with these? Well, you know, Volvo is a classy European brand, but under the sexy skin are just a whole bunch of Ford and Land Rover parts. So mechanically, are these a bit sketchy? I'm not a mechanic, I'm not qualified to answer that, but Jim is.
There are a bunch of different petrol and diesel engine options for these things. Some of the problems are common to both. With the petrol engines, we see a few problems with the engine breather system, which comes about from feeble engine bay plastics. We see engine oil leaks, and we see some broken engine mount issues as well. In the diesels, a few more problems there. We see a lot of oil leaks. We also see broken engine mounts. One of the biggest problems we see is just really badly clogged up inlet manifolds, which is typical for a lot of late model diesels. We recommend fitting a catch cam, which will definitely help with that. Interesting point, some of these engines are also seen in some Land Rover models. And Land Rovers aren't particularly known for their reliability, so something to consider. Another common problem we see with the XC60 is the front seat belt latches fail. This particular customer was informed by the dealership that it was going to cost around $1,400, and there's a whole lot of technical computer bullshit that had to happen to repair it. None of that was true. We did the job for less than half of that. So just check your seat belt latches. Now, I know Adam mentioned the water leak around the sunroof and around the A-pillar. Just have a good look at that, because what happens also is the water leaks in around the sunroof switching and the motor mechanism and can be really expensive to fix. We're talking a couple of grand, so keep a good eye for that. Besides some of the mechanical stuff we see that goes wrong with these, they do look really good.
So is it safe? Guys, this is a Volvo. They've built their entire brand identity on safety. Yes, it's safe. The list of safety features is extensive, and it will vary between trim levels and years, but all XC60s come standard with a high-strength steel roll cage integrated into the body, ABS, intelligent airbags, and low-speed autonomous emergency braking. Many XC60s are also equipped with a load of driver aid tech, like blind spot monitors and cross-traffic alerts, but again, for all of the graphic details, just check the cheat sheets on the website. So what's it like to drive? Well, even after 6 years and many thousands of kilometres, this thing still feels totally refined. It's bloody lovely. Now, something funny about Volvos, they all have the same smell. Like, this thing smells exactly like my old 850R used to smell. Every Volvo I've driven, they all have that same, it smells almost like a masculine, sophisticated Swedish man kind of smell. Delightful. It's so quiet in here, like there's hardly any road or wind noise. There's a few little creaks and rattles, but you know, after this many years and this many kilometres, that's to be expected. But overall, it's just, yeah, it's nearly silent in here. It's lovely. The vision out of this is excellent as well, like really easy to judge all the parameters. Like, this is covered in sensors and it'll beep and bong if you go near anything, but overall, yeah, super easy to judge for parking. These are kind of tight suburban streets. It's an absolute breeze. Yeah, it's funny with a lot of modern cars now, everything's like touchscreen, and this thing has a copious amount of buttons on it, but you forget how nice the tactility of an actual button is. Like, yes, there's lots of them, but once you know where the buttons are, it's just easy to get to. You don't have to take your eyes off the road. You just know, okay, that does that, that does that, that does that. With a touchscreen, you've got to, you know, look down and work out what's going on, but yeah, buttons are underrated. Actually, to add on to that, many criticise some of the new XC Volvos for having too many touchscreens. Like, even if you just want to, you know, change the temperature or the fan speed, you've got to go into a menu to find that, and it's just annoying. And again, I think a bit dangerous. With this, just easy. There's a button, push it, it works. Great. The ride quality is fantastic. Like, it's still really compliant over even bigger bumps and rough roads, but it doesn't wallow and dip around too much. Like, yeah, a few years and a lot of thousands of kilometres, but suspension feels excellent. As far as negatives go, the steering's a bit numb and it's a bit too many turns lock to lock, but there's no real communication through the steering wheel and it just feels a little bit vague, but again, I'm being very picky. Okay, engine and performance wise, the T6 variant of these are actually quite quick. It's deceptive how fast they are. This being a T5, goes. That's good performance. Like, that's nice and smooth, really refined power plant, good amount of power. It's not a performance car, it's not trying to be a performance car, but for a luxury SUV, this thing, that's all the performance you need. Okay, if I'm gonna get really picky, the transmission, like the speeds of shifts and selections, are a bit slow, but again, it's been very, very picky. Look, overall, this thing is just bloody lovely. Even after this many years and this many kilometers, it still does exactly what it says on the box. Pricing here in Australia kicks off from around about $10,000 for early base spec models, probably with over 200,000 kilometers on the clock and probably harboring a few gremlins as well. And at the other end of the scale, pricing tops out at around the mid to high $50,000 range for a pretty recent top spec XC60 in perfect condition. Something like this car, a 2015 T5 in pretty good condition with a reasonable amount of kilometers on it, you're gonna be looking at around about 30,000 bucks. Volvo have a claimed fuel consumption figure of anywhere between 4.9 to 11.9 litres per 100 Ks across the XC60 range, depending on year and model and variant. On this particular car, they're claiming 7 litres per 100 Ks, but on this test, we're seeing figures of 11.5. Volvo offered a 3-year unlimited kilometre warranty on all XC60s, meaning that most of these are now out of warranty, and servicing is recommended at every 15,000 Ks or 12 months. Now, because these are European, genuine Volvo parts may ask a premium when it comes to price, but the good news is there are some non-OEM parts available, and that should save you some cash. Now, because the architecture and some of the systems in these can be quite complex, something that would be a pretty simple fix in like a Japanese or a South Korean car, in these can become quite time consuming, and time is money. So yeah, the labor costs, they might add up. So should you buy one? Well, look, personally, I love this thing. A T6R design version of one of these is very high on my want list. If you go into an XC60 knowing that there is a pretty high probability that the maintenance costs may start adding up, and you thoroughly go over the service history and make sure it's totally up to scratch, and then you inspect the car with the same minute attention that you'd give to a new rash on your skin, and then you get it inspected by your local mechanic and they give it the tick of approval, well, even then, yeah, you probably shouldn't buy one, but yeah, okay, go get one. But if you need a luxury SUV that has absolutely bulletproof reliability, well, maybe you should look at the other alternative to European SUVs. It's one that starts with L and ends with X's. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and hey, what did you think of the XC60? Let us know in the comments section below. And hey, can you do us a favor and hit those like, subscribe and bell icon buttons, and go and follow us on all the socials. See you next time. Oh good, how's the tech? Half of that's been cut off by the fucking printer. Performance-wise, the T6 variant of these are properly quick. Where the f am I going? Where is this? Is this a driveway? Better do it, Yui. Now, if you own an XC60 or you're an XC60 expert, fucking hell. I love that Volvo have evolved from being this, you know, boxy, fucking, from this boxy, what am I trying to say? Boxy design that they were so well known for, sorry man. What is going on with my brain today? Here we go. On this particular model, they're claiming 7 litres per 100 Ks, but on this test, we're seeing so close. Volvo have a Volvo offered a 3-year unlimited kilometre warranty on all Volvo offered a 3-year unlimited kilometre, Morris. The cost of labour but if you want a luxury SUV that, shut up. All right, here we go.